What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Dynasty Talk show with Sam here on the Dynasty Pros Network. Today, we're going to be doing a late round flyer episode. With me today, I got SC. SC, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Glad to get in some chats with you, help some people out, get these late round startup picks that can strike some gold, hopefully.
For sure. So on the screen right now, if you want to follow us along, we got SC and I's Twitter handles here. At any point, feel free to hit up either one of us, inside, outside of the show. We love helping everybody. So just a little outline for the show today. What do we mean by late round flyers? Basically, I think the guy that SC and I were going by is anyone going outside the top 100 or so on a sleeper ADP, kind of startup draft ADP, but even these guys, you can be trading for them post startup draft, I think is good to keep in mind. So we're going to go position by position, and we're each going to do a couple for each position. So let's get this kicked off. We're going to start off with QB. And SC, why don't you give me your first QB for a late round flyer?
Sure, man. I mean, if you follow me, if you're in Dynasty leagues with me, if you've done some startups with me, you know I love this guy. Atlanta Falcons quarterback Desmond Ridder. Why is he getting so much hate? I don't know. Maybe it's because we haven't seen him play yet. We saw him play 4 games last year, but we haven't seen a lot of it. He's currently has an ADP of QB 31, at least on Sleeper. And to me, that's just outrageous. I mean, in some drafts, Will Levis is going before him, and I don't even think Will Levis is going to start out the gate. I think he'll start down the road, but I think it's Ryan Tannehill. So, like, why are you drafting this guy? Even Hendon Hooker is going before him in some drafts. It just doesn't make sense to me. This guy has the weapons in front of him. They just drafted Bijan, so you know a lot of that pressure is coming off of him. He has Drake London. He has Kyle Pitts. They got Jonnu Smith. They have all the weapons around him for him to succeed. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and put Joe Burrow numbers or even, Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to be that top QB, but man, QB 31 as an ADP of 31 right now, to me, that's just screaming value because he has the upside to be a QB2, for the whole season. He just has those weapons, and he's a confident player. The team likes him. They trusted him. They didn't address the quarterback position in the draft. It's Desmond Ridder season, man, and people need to start getting on top of that.
Yeah, I love what you said, and I really liked how you were focusing on the weapons, right? Like, these are late round guys. Obviously, no one needs to convince you Patrick Mahomes is going to be a great player to draft. But when you're looking outside the top 24, or even with Ridder, like you said, QB 31 right now, outside the top 30, like, this dude has 3 bona fide studs that go top 10, top 15 at their positions, right? I don't want to include London in the top 10 yet, but he's top 15 startup, and then obviously Pitts and Bijan are, if not the first ones off the board in their position, they're one of the first couple, right? And I totally agree with you. And
if he was on like a team like the Texans, like if it was him and CJ Stroud switch, right, and he was on the Texans, I'd be like, okay, because I don't see him as the player to necessarily extend the play or to be the playmaking quarterback, right? But he's smart and he has the IQ of a quarterback to make the right throws and make the right decisions. And with those weapons, it's something where it's like, I don't see failure as an option necessarily. I just think he's going to be putting up consistency for us this upcoming season. And he got kind of rid of some of those growing pains as a rookie, the end of last year. We saw it because he jumped up from like QB 29 in the 3rd week he started to like QB 11 to just having a great game, so we know that's there. And I just really feel confident. I mean, two number ones at their position. What more do you need there? So it's just hard to see him be that late, and it's just screaming value,
For sure. And I'm gonna build off that. For my number 1 late flyer at QB is Sam Howell. And I think he's in a very similar position to like what we've talked about with Ridder, right? He's going late, and not only does he have the weapons, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, I think the addition of Bieniemy is a great. Or do we know if Bieniemy can be that, that overwhelming offensive force without Andy Reid? We haven't seen it yet, but it's hope, and it's just like excitement, and there's a chance it works. And we're talking about players going late. We're not talking about guys to build your first 7 startup picks around where you can't miss on these guys. Right. Draft a guy that can grow in value, right?
Yeah.
And Ridder and Howell can both grow in value due to their age and the weapon around them.
So Howell came out, I believe it was last year was his rookie season, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Or was it last year?
Mm-hmm.
If he would have came out the year before, he would have been one of the top quarterbacks that we were talking about. But he stayed a year and then had a down year compared to that year before he had, right? And so going into the system, having a Super Bowl offensive coordinator now, calling those plays for him, calling those shots, having a big weapon like Terry McLaurin, having a nice agile wide receiver like Jahan Dotson, having a plethora of running backs behind him as well. He's someone too that, man, he's big. He can run out the pocket and get you some rushing yard points as well. So I do like his upside because I wouldn't say he's necessarily a key dual threat quarterback, but if you're like, man, I really need that second quarterback, I would love taking Sam Howell, especially where he's at, because you're probably looking at, I don't know, your Will Levis and Hendon Hooker in that kind of area, Ryan Tannehill, even maybe Matthew Stafford. I'd probably take him before that, just because I feel he's going to be a weapon in itself, just having that upside ability of rushing too.
Yeah, I think his rushing upside kind of reminds me of like early career Kirk Cousins, maybe, right? Like I think for those that remember Cousins when he was in Washington, like he wasn't ever doing the Lamar thing and running for 1,000 yards, obviously, but he had 3, 4, 5 rushing touchdowns, and he'd get you some on the ground. So I think that's a great thing to bring up. And same thing with Ridder, right? I think we're eye and eye on two guys that it's the upside, right? These aren't the safe picks, but they're upside plays for where they're going. So who's your number 2, SC?
Right now, my number 2, and man, it's hard, but I think he's just going to be a starting quarterback, and that's Baker Mayfield. Tampa Bay now, ADP at 35 for the quarterbacks, so that's not even – there's 32 teams in the NFL, so there's 32 starters, and his ADP is 35.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there 3 people ahead of him that's possibly not starting there, right? And this is just like when Brady came to Tampa a few years ago. This is arguably the best receiving core he has played with, and he gets a running back that can catch the ball at the backfield, and Rashaad White even, So I just really feel if you've seen the training camp videos of what's going on right now, it's not pretty. So I understand this kind of, but he still has that value because he has started, he has seen some success, he has been in the top 20 round for a quarterback, and what you can get from him, and you're putting him with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I mean, that's just, again, just like Ridder and just like with your guy Sam Howell, it just screams value. This is a starting quarterback that you're getting in the later rounds over these top 100 picks. And to be honest, over these 3 guys that we're talking about, it's a reason that a lot of my super flex leagues right now that I'm starting up, if I'm within those top 5 picks, I'm getting the top 5 quarterbacks. But after that, I'm going after position values because I love these value of these guys here that you can get later to have your quarterback and stack up at your wide receiver and running back positions.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of like you mentioned, man, send that training camp video along with a 3rd round pick to the guy in your league for Baker Mayfield and just be like, look how bad he is, dude. He's so bad. And I think, I don't know if I'm as in on Mayfield as you are, but this is a late round flyer show. This is not a trade your first round for this player kind of show. And like you said, QB 35, and he's most likely the starter. That means there's multiple quarterbacks on 2 quarterbacks on a single team are going before him. My guess would be, without having it in front of me, probably Hooker is one of those guys going before him. Maybe some, like Levis, and my guess is Tannehill is probably going after Baker. I can't imagine there, but yeah, I'm with you, man. My number 2 guy I'm going to talk about, and you actually said his name earlier, but I just like the range he's going in it, and that's Matthew Stafford. I think he's a totally different pick than Sam Howell. He's the complete opposite, right? Mm-hmm. But I think just what I think about Matthew Stafford is he's going at QB 29 on Sleeper right now. And that is ridiculously late for a guy that a year ago was probably going closer to like QB 14. Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah, he had a bad year. He was hurt and he sat out the year. Kupp was out. That team didn't look great. But I just have a hard time thinking if Stafford comes out and, first 4 or 5 games, he looks back to what we think Stafford could look like. His ADP and his value shoots right back up from where he's being drafted, right? Like right now, you could maybe get Stafford for a second and a third, or a second and a player or something. And if he starts out the year, he looks fine. The neck is good. Cooper Kupp's back. He's balling out. The Rams are back to normal. He's QB 13, QB 12. Like, this dude's worth a first-round pick easy. Like, I just don't see how it couldn't happen for the price you have to pay to acquire Stafford, or especially draft Stafford. I think that's the key, right? Acquire him, I understand it. If I'm acquiring a veteran QB, I think there's a couple guy I would acquire before Stafford, but drafting wise, I think he's a great value. If, like you said, if you want to stack up at RB and wide receiver and then go, honestly, take all four of these guys we just said, Howell, Riddle, Stafford, Mayfield, you could have 2-3 starting QBs.
Right. And there's upside in all of these guys that can get you to be a contender if you stacked up at the other positions. Right. And Stafford's actually one of my buys, and one that I am targeting in the late rounds, because you mentioned it. He was a Super Bowl quarterback, and a lot of people will say, oh, okay, this is, someone that was hurt last season. Cooper Kupp was hurt last season. Their whole team was hurt last season. And I believe come week 6 or 7, they're like, all right, guys, let's just punt. Let's just everyone get healthy, everyone go away. Don't worry about our backups will play. We need to see what we got. Everyone get healthy, and when we get into this offseason, it's time to work. And I really think this is going to be one of those work seasons for Stafford. He's coming back with Cooper Kupp, who's arguably one of the top wide receivers, if not the top wide receiver in the league when he's fully healthy, right? Mm-hmm. He's coming back with that, and I just – it's ridiculous, man. I mean, if he's healthy, if Stafford's healthy all seasons, he can throw for 5,000 yards. He has that type of arm, and yeah, he's getting older and everything like that, but – if you're leading the quarterback, or even as your QB2, like let's say you got a Herbert, or you went with Stroud or Young at the beginning, Stafford's a great guy to go in there and be your bye week filler in single quarterback leagues, or to be your starting QB in the super flex as well. I love that pick.
Well, and I'm going to throw one out too. Like, let's say you're a competitive team in a dynasty right now. You have Burrow, and I'm going to throw out a QB2 you could have if you're trying to win this year, Kyler Murray. Go get Matthew Stafford and throw him in there until Kyler Murray gets back, man, because you do not want to be depending on, no QB2 while Kyler's gone. You're telling me you want to play Colt McCoy, or, I don't want to hate on Clayton Tune, our boy JT's guy, but like, he's a rookie. That dude's not going to walk in and be a bona fide stud. Right. And I think Stafford could. So we're going to move on to running back. So SC, who's your number one running back late round flyer right now?
My number one, man, and I'm actually going to shout out one of my buddies for RPO, Joshua Thompson, for Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford right now is, going at ADP 74 for the running backs. This guy right now in Cleveland is sitting behind Nick Chubb. They didn't bring back Kareem Hunt yet. Could still change. They didn't bring back Dearness Johnson. He's now in Jacksonville. They didn't address the running back room in the draft. They didn't necessarily address it elsewhere in free agency. Jerome Ford was one of the top running backs last year. This guy has the speed to get down. He's a good complement to Nick Chubb. And if you're needing, so I'm not saying he's going to start or he's going to get you points out the gate, but there is a realm where he ends up being a solid flex option just because they might utilize him to rest Nick Chubb. So why not have that opportunity of Nick Chubb's a pure runner, probably the purest runner we have in the NFL, right? So he's going to pound the rock. You're going to have someone go in there and alleviate that tension from Nick Chubb after running so much on the third down plays. And Jerome Ford might be that running back to get you just the little numbers you may need. And again, towards the end of the season, maybe to put Nick Chubb to further rest, he'll give you a little bit more. So I just love that value. You're getting him. He might go undrafted in some of your startups, honestly. That's just that value where it's like, okay, as soon as those drafts end, who's on the waiver? Did I miss anybody? And he's possibly someone you did miss, or you can probably get him for a 4th-round pick maybe, because he's just not that sexy name. It's Nick Chubb, and it's like no one's going to dethrone Nick Chubb. All right, but I'll still get his backup. Why not?
I would not be surprised to see August 1st ADP Jerome Ford going RB 49. 48. I think he, just like you said, I think he's going to start sliding up the board, because not only is he just getting the buzz right now, I think people are just going to start they're going to start looking at that depth chart, and they're going to start realizing that Jerome Ford is, he could, just like you said, give that guy 10 touches. You can throw him in your flex. Nick Chubb gets hurt for a game, throw him in. We've seen a lot of success out of Cleveland handcuffs before. Not that I'm anticipating Chubb gets hurt. I think that dude's a freaking beast, and I'm a huge Nick Chubb fan. I think he's been a value for 5 years in fantasy drafts, man, and I'm with you. I got Ford on my taxi squad from last year. I drafted him as a Nick Chubb owner, and I believed him in then, and I was so glad when they let Hunt walk, because I was like, perfect. Jerome Ford's just going to slide right in. So,
well, I mean, even if we look at like Nick Chubb last year, because it was like an off year for him, right? Or not Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I mean, he still put up 125 fantasy points just on this slate that I am, So he's, again, not someone that's going to get you anything. He got 468 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's okay for a guy you're getting that late. That's great value for a guy that's coming that late that might be undrafted on your team. So if he's there, I'm going to get him.
For sure. So for my first running back, late round flyer, I'm actually going to do 2, and I'll explain. I'm going to pair them together, and that's going to be Kenneth Gainwell and Rashaad Penny, right? These guys are going as RB 54 for Penny and 60 for Gainwell. And I think when I saw their ADP, something that immediately caught my eye when you're looking for late round flyers is who's someone that is raising an ADP and who is it pushing down, right? Mm-hmm. So DeAndre Swift is raising. He's flying upwards because he landed in Philly, and people are super hyped about that. Right. So it's pushing Gainwell and Penny down, but I just have a hard time believing that, as much talent as we think DeAndre Swift has, he's not a 20-touch a game player, and it's just not going to happen. And that's not even starting to count the games he could miss, which we've seen him miss games every single year, right? Now, obviously, Rashaad Penny is not the epitome of health himself, but I just think the value you're getting on Penny, and even Gainwell, who, let's not forget, looked better than Miles Sanders in the playoffs last year. They relied on Gainwell down that stretch more than Sanders for a lot of key touches. I just think they might all touch the ball, and so when it comes down to it, the price on Gainwell and Penny might be a good guy to throw on your bench, even if you don't have DeAndre Swift. I don't think this is a handcuff situation. I think it's more of a just put this guy on your team and see what happens.
Right. No, I agree with everything you said there. I mean, Gainwell, I think, is the one that's losing the most traction, but I think he's the one that you should try to acquire, because if the inevitable happens and Swift does go down, guess what? Gainwell's going to take that role. Mm-hmm. Penny has someone that when he's healthy, he's a dominant running back. The fact is he can't stay healthy, though. Right. So Gainwell to me is the one that's like, okay, we should definitely try to acquire him there, because the inevitable may happen. Now, we don't want to say that those injuries or anything will, but I mean, I love Penny too. He's a pure runner, and he's completely different from Kenneth Gainwell and DeAndre Swift. He's the one that's going to be running up the middle for them and getting them 10, 15 yards, and I would definitely take them over Swift, just because of the uncertainty you may have with Swift and the value you may have to get him at, because he's considered the starting running back, right? But these are guys we've seen it in Philly. They know how to utilize the running backs, how to rotate them in and out, and I see that happening. They have thunder, lightning right now, so it's possible for them to just run them multiple times and try different formations out for all of them to succeed.
100%. So who are we doing for your second running back buy here today? Or not running back buy, late round flyer?
So, I mean, I am also going with 2 guys here, and that's going to be the running back duo of Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mohstert. The Dolphins just got Devin Achane, and this guy is going to be great. He's sold off his speed at the combine. He showed he fits the Dolphins mold and just being this fast team. I think Devin Achane has a chance to come in here and do some great things for this team. But let's not forget about Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mohstert last year. Last year combined, they had 9 top 15 weeks. Okay, they had 4 top 10 weeks in those 9 rounds, and they also ran for over 400 yards 4 different times. If one of these guys starts, which is likely, that's just the way McDaniels runs it, just randomly starting different running backs. If one of them starts, this is a great guy to go ahead and start. Now, not a weekly start, but if you get him late and it's like, wait, Jeff Wilson's getting the starting nod this year, let's go ahead, okay, or this game, go ahead and start him because he's probably going to succeed. That's just the way McDaniels runs. He knows how to use those running backs. And both these guys, also two guys, Raheem Mohstert especially, possibly undrafted because of his age. But guess what? When he's healthy as well and he goes out and gives you 2 to 3 games, the past 2 years, you want him in those 2 to 3 games because he's a top RB in those weeks. So, I mean, those both guys, ADP for 67 for Wilson, ADP 69 for Mohstert, screaming value again. You're getting them final pick of the draft. You know, you might even get them undrafted in some leagues, but those are guys that you don't even need Octane. Just someone that's like, oh, wait, I'm going to take it in case of the bye week filler. I need it. It could be the bye week that they're starting, and you're going to want them on your team.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think that is a very similar situation to what I was saying with Swift and why I was in on the ADP for Gainwell and Penny. Wilson and Mohstert, same exact thing. A-Chain is the one that's rising up boards, and I love A-Chain. I was talking about him before the draft, and this is nothing against him, but what it's doing is it's making it a lot easier to acquire Wilson and Mohstert and just put them on your team in case you need them. Right. You don't want to play them every week, but they are cheap options to acquire or draft if you need a guy around that could touch the ball so you're not depending on Ernest Johnson or, these full-on backups, not guys who could get 8, 9, 10 touches. And like you said with some of the stats from last year, there were actually multiple games where Wilson and Mohstert were playable on the same week in the same game. And yeah, it might be hard to choose the correct one, but it only takes one of those guys going. Let's say Wilson's hurt, so Mohstert becomes a good play, just like you were saying. Let's say A-Chain goes down for a couple weeks, and you can start Mohstert that week. I think that's kind of the pattern I would expect from the Dolphins, and just from the way it looked like McDaniel was doing it last season. So I'm with you.
And the value comes in not necessarily as like, okay, I can start them and they'll put up points, but also say you have them in the week they go off and you didn't start them, but then you find out someone needs a running back. Guess who you can go after? Like, hey, man, I have this guy. I'll take a third for him. That's still huge value there because that third can be building up value as the draft comes in, right? So, I mean, you can go in there and be like, okay, look, these guys just went off. You need a running back. Your guys are hurt or whatever reason. Make that trade happen and sell them high when you do have that opportunity there.
Yeah, I think, too, this is a little off topic, but to build on what you just said, a very underrated thing I think a lot of people don't understand is that when you're doing a startup draft, and let's say you're doing a year one tank or you're doing a productive struggle, as a lot of people have liked to coin the term, sometimes you need players to trade away to contenders. Right. Contenders don't want – like, I think Jerome Ford is a perfect example, right? Last year, Jerome Ford was a great pick if you wanted him to grow value on your own team. But you weren't going to sell Jerome Ford to anyone last year because he wasn't doing anything. Whereas Wilson and Mohstert, if they spike, maybe you could throw, hey, I'll give you Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mohstert, and I want a second. Right. Like, I'll give you both of them. So I just wanted to bring up that point. It just popped in my mind. So. Okay, so for my second RB late round flyer, I'm going to go Antonio Gibson. We did talk about the Commanders earlier, and I think a lot of what I said about Sam Howell and the receivers really has to do with Antonio Gibson. Gibson's going off the board as the 42nd running back taken, which is amazing seeing as he was, RB 10 2 years ago, RB 20 last offseason. I don't think he's one of the 10 best running backs in the league, but if he can fill the Jerick McKinnon role on that Commanders offense, I just see him as a good value pick this late in drafts, especially seeing that even though Gibson has gotten a ton of hate year to year from people, he's been a very productive player. Now, it comes with fumbles, it comes with mishaps, but this is fantasy football, and at points we don't have to think of it like you're trying to win the NFL game. Sometimes the stats and the fantasy points, it is what matters, right? Like, we don't need to oversimplify it, but it's fantasy football. So if he misses a block, as long as he stays in the game or goes back in, I don't really care that much. I'm not a Commanders fan. It's not going to hurt my feelings if they get crushed by Philly. Honestly, if they're getting crushed by Philly, it's more points for Gibson. So
for sure. No, I mean, I love that you brought up, hopefully he's the next McKinnon. When he first came into the league, this will be his 4th year. So 4 years ago, you could say 2020 now. He was behind the McKinnon in targets and receptions. Okay. When he came in that 2nd year, they were about even. They had almost a similar exact stats of receptions and targets. And then this last year, he actually overtook McKinnon and started leading in the targets and receptions between both of them. So I think the realm of him becoming this McKinnon type role is definitely valuable. And, people have said, oh, well, we haven't seen that. So what's the thought of it being? We haven't seen it because they had Jerry McKinnon. They don't have McKinnon anymore, so now it is possible for that to happen. Brian Robinson looks like he's going to be their, 1-2 puncher for them. And I really love Gibson. I think he's someone that's getting underappreciated at a running back because Brian Robinson had a great year 1, but he's someone that I think can definitely get you weekly value if that needs to be your RB that you need to start.
Yeah, I think Gibson's someone who maybe if you're unsure if you're a competitive or a non-competitive team, could be your RB2 for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks of the season. Mm-hmm. And then if you need to pull the trigger and go get someone better, go for it. But I think he might be able to float the boat from your RB2 if you're strong at other positions, kind of as a 0 RB kind of target, so.
I'd take him over like a Michael Carter. And I feel he's going to gain a little bit higher, even like over Abidi Kanda. I'd take him over that. And there's a lot of RB2s or considered RB2s on the team that I prefer to have Gibson because I know he has that upside to be the team's 1 as well. So
he's a great guy, I think, to use some of these running backs that are going in the 3rd and 4th round of rookie drafts, whether it's during the draft or post drafts. Like you said, go trade Izzy for him. Go trade. Even some of these guys I like, but maybe someone wants to come in the late 3rd and pick up a receiver they really like in the rookie draft, but you need a running back who's going to play and who's going to get you points. I think Gibson can be that guy.
For sure.
So let's move on to wide receiver. And SC, who is your first wide receiver late round flyer?
My first one's Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Anthony Richardson's the hot buzz, and then follow that is Josh Downs, the rookie wide receiver they just brought in. They still have Michael Pittman, who's, I believe, one of the top 15 at his position right now, going in there. But I really love Alec Pierce, and I really think the addition of Josh Downs is going to open him up a little bit more. He was a field stretcher when he was at Cincinnati with Ridder, right? And he has that ability. He has a great catch radius, the ability to make the right play. He knows how to track the ball well. And if if Anthony Richardson has the arm in which he has showed us, at the combine and things like that, just that cannon, Alec Pierce is someone that can be on the opposite side of that. And to me, I'd rather get Alec Pierce late instead of Pittman, because chances are where you're going Pittman, it's around the same time as your DKs, maybe your Higgins area, things like that as well. And I'd rather get one of those guys and then go ahead and get Alec Pierce later, ADP 63 right now at his position. So I've been a big fan of Alec Pierce. I really like the athlete he is, the type of player that he is, and I feel he's someone that can shoot up this year, especially with someone like a cannon that Anthony Richardson may have.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting pick. I think I'm kind of split on that one with you. Number one, and I think I would preface it with this, he's going as wide receiver 63, and I have no issue ever acquiring someone going as wide receiver 63 because that is all upside and no risk at all. Right. I think my number one thing, and this is something I like to follow in a lot of my leagues, and there's a lot of data to back up that rookie quarterbacks rarely support 2 wide receivers in their rookie season, right. And that would be my only worry. But like you said, if you want to take that off shot that he can become the 1 and slingshot Pittman, if you're not a Pittman guy, I totally get the going for it, because like you said, this guy was going in 2nd round of rookie drafts last year, and you could probably go get him for a 3 right now. And at that price, it's an acquisition that could be worth the upside. If Anthony Richardson takes off, there's going to be a second weapon on that team. It's probably going to be Pittman, and Pierce and Downs are the 2 that might have to fight to be that second guy. And because of rookie hype, Downs is getting the edge on Pierce right now. But Pierce was a higher draft pick, and Pierce is bigger. And as much as we love Josh Downs as a route runner and just like a baller, man,
right?
Pierce profiles more as a guy that could be more productive. So I definitely see where you're seeing what you're saying there.
For sure.
So my number one wide receiver late round flyer, this is a guy that I got to say, the more and more I watched him last year, I just fell more and more in love with this dude as a player. And that's my boy, Rasheed Shaheed on the New Orleans Saints. I just was amazed from his first touch. What was his first touch? It was a freaking touchdown, man. Yeah. And then just every single week, the dude would touch the ball like 4 times and he just kept scoring. And then you started to like actually watch him run some routes and you were just like, you know what? If this guy can just put together a couple more route running moves and a couple more routes in his tree, like they were respecting his speed so much. And just watching him run, you were like, most guys cannot move like this. And so I just think there is a chance, and there's so much wide open space in the New Orleans wide receiver core behind Chris Olave that, you know, we all think Michael Thomas, who knows, man, that dude is basically dead to me. And I don't ever want to think about him again. And there's some other okay weapons there. I talked on a previous show, I'm a real big Juwan Johnson guy, but there's just this total opposite role across from Olave that why couldn't it be Rasheed Shaheed? And that's kind of how I'm viewing this. Like, if that dude hits, I mean, yeah, he's a deep threat. He's not going to be as consistent. He's not that player. But, you know, wide receiver 75, like, I just feel like if he hits and he can put a couple things together, he's an absolute athletic freak. And I just love the upside going that late.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that pick. You know, they did bring in A.T. Perry, and if you follow me on Twitter, I was screaming A.T. Perry is the guy you want to get in this year's draft last year, right? But they didn't bring in A.T. Perry to replace Rasheed Shaheed. You know, he's someone that is a downfield threat. You mentioned in that first play, he's someone that's going to go get it, and he's going to be your boom bust type of wide receiver, because when he's booming, you're going to have like a 20-30 point fantasy point game from him just because he's getting like 100 yards and like 2 touchdowns just because he's going down deep, right? If he's busting, it's going to hurt you. But there is a lot of upside this late in the draft where it's like, okay, I can take this, and guess what? If I start him on the right week, this is great for me. I don't think there's anyone outside of Olave that's challenging him necessarily, because all the receivers are kind of different in what they can do, right? And that's where he has that benefit to see the field because he can stretch it for him. And when it's the Hail Mary type of ones, he's probably gonna be your guy that you're gonna target because he's gonna be down the field first, you know. So I really love that pick, and Carr is a great quarterback. You know, I think people sleep on Carr, and I think he's gonna love that, you know, having that type of player for him.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't be surprised to, you know, we saw it even last year, and this player I'm about to bring up is total opposite of Rasheed Shaheed, but I think it just goes to show that Carr could sneakily support 2 to 3 weapons. And like, think of like that stretch last year where like Mac Hollins had like 5 good games. And you were just like, it's not that Mac Hollins was a stud, but with the right amount of targets, and if Derek Carr can find you downfield, you know, like we all know Chris Olave is a stud, and it's going to start happening where the safety is going to start shading to Olave. And Rasheed Shaheed is not a guy you want to not leave with a safety over you with that kind of speed. So like you said, like, you know, I'm not anticipating this dude to be wide receiver 6 and have 13 touchdowns and 1,200 yards. But I just think if he gets going and he gets his snap percentage up, I think he could have a really good year. So,
but there might be some weeks where he might be the wide receiver 6 for that week. That's just the type of boom he could have, you know. So Mac Hollins was a great example there, and Rasheed Shaheed is a better wide receiver than Mac Hollins, in my opinion. You know, so I definitely love that. And yeah, I mean, I think he could help you win some weeks. Maybe not the season, but he could definitely help you win some weeks.
Yeah. So SC, who was your second late round flyer wide receiver?
Man, this is just a disrespect to this guy, you know, that he's going this late. He has an ADP of 99 at his position, and that's Robert Woods, you know, Texans wide receiver. Probably going to be the wide receiver 1 to CJ Stroud. They brought in Tank Dell. I know they have Xavier Hutchinson. They have Nico Collins. They have John Mechie, sure. But Robert Woods is the veteran. This is the guy that they brought in to say, hey, we're going to need you to become this safety net for our rookie QB. Let him know the chemistry that needs to be built with these wide receivers. Let him know what needs to happen, when to do the proper reads. Robert Woods has been in the league for quite some time now, and he still has it. He's still a wide receiver that has it. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go in there and be one of your top 10 wide receivers as he's done in the past, but he is definitely someone that I feel is going to, at least early on, possibly lead the Texans in targets. Right. So he's someone that if you're like, man, I really missed on some wide receivers, I really need some depth. Why are we not taking him in the later rounds? Another one that I feel he goes undrafted sometimes. And I don't know if it's the age or maybe it's the rookie QB or maybe it's just a new system. And I don't know. But he's someone that his consistency, he is consistent in the fact that he always grabs targets. He always makes a good play. He gets you a couple touchdowns. And I don't think that's going to change in Houston. I think that's going to stay the same. And Stroud's going to find out to love him early. Now, does that love continue all season? I don't know. But I will take that early run. Sometimes it will help you to get up early in the season to get these guys because it's something like, okay, now week 4, week 5, they had great weeks. Now let me go trade them and try to get something back for them.
Yeah, I didn't have any guys on this list from the Texans, but I think they fit this topic very well. And that's just – that whole team is wide open for who's going to be the person to get the targets. Like, is it Schultz? Is it Woods? Like, you got the Nico Collins guys. You know, maybe Mechie comes back. Maybe it's Tank Dell. Like, who knows, right? But at the price for all of those players, it's worth taking a couple of them just to see if you can get the guy for wide receiver 99 that becomes the one. Why not? Just like you said, like I think if you were to redraft and do like a draft after 8 weeks of the NFL season, I think rookie fever will have gone away, and I think Robert Woods would be going a lot more. He's just going to be a more valuable player, right? He's the classic. No one wants him right now, but come week 6, he's wide receiver 38. You know, and you're like, okay, I'll take wide receiver 38. Like,
for sure,
he's a good guy to have around. Like, I was screaming all last offseason to like all my friends and just everyone, like, go get Zay Jones. Go get Zay Jones. And this one kind of has the same feeling where it's just like, I never thought Zay Jones was going to be wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but end of the season comes and Zay Jones is a top 30 wide receiver because it's just he had a couple games, had a couple good games. He got the targets. He got the contract. Like, at some point you follow the money enough, and they wanted Robert Woods because, you know, he's going to be where he's supposed to be. Now, we're hoping Mechie will be, and we're hoping Tank Dell will be, and we're hoping Nico Collins will be, but Robert Woods will be there. That dude is a vet, and he knows what he's doing.
He's going to be the teacher, man, and all those guys will be as he's the one teaching them on the field in game day. You know, definitely an early season buy for me, and definitely get the value when you see him get, okay, these are good ones, because it's inevitable. The rookies should, if they're all pen out, they should do well, right? They should come in and take their roles respectively from him. But right now, he's the leader on a young offensive team, you know, so I love the pick you can get and the value you can get back for him. Okay,
so for my second wide receiver late round flyer, I'm going to do something similar to what I did earlier, and I'm just going to take an entire position group. We haven't really been talking about rookies, so I won't include the rookie on this one, but I'm taking all of the Giants wide receivers, and I'm going to just list through their ADPs real quick, and you're going to totally see what I'm saying. Wan'Dale Robinson, 59. Hodgins, 80. Paris Campbell, 94. Slayton, 98. Just like, did people completely forget that, like, Hodgins and Slayton both were, like, fairly usable players down the stretch last year, right? Like, Hodgins was playing super well, and Slayton had his games too. I've always been a big Slayton guy, so I think he's got some sneaky value just his speed brings. But
for sure,
I just think these guys just scream, just take 2 of them. I don't really even care which 2 you take. You know, I think Wan'Dale Robinson deserves to be going first just because he's younger. But I just think Hodgins, Paris Campbell, and Slayton, like, just get one of those guys in your team. And if he's the one that plays, awesome. We don't really know who it's going to be. We're all crossing our fingers Jalen Hyatt's going to be a hit. And I love his speed for that offense. I just think someone's going to pop and someone's going to have week-to-week flex-worthy play. Yeah. Not to be a little vague about it, I just think at the price of all these guys, pick your favorite one and go get them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that pick. I'm a huge Daniel Jones truther, and Hodgins to me is the one that's screaming value because he sold the upside to be Jones' favorite target, down the stretch. He was one of the more consistent wide receiver ones for Jones, and so it's going to be something where if he's still building that chemistry with Jones during this offseason, he's going to be the guy. I mean, the guy's a giant. He's like 6'3", 6'4", I think, so he's definitely going to be someone that still might see the offense where you might have Wandale take a backseat to your Jalen Hyatt or become the slot, where he's not necessarily on the outside or every snap, where Hodgins has that capability of being that. And this is a wide receiver going that wide receiver 80. I mean, that's phenomenal value there. He showed he could go down the field. He showed he could run the routes. He showed he could be the trusted target to Daniel Jones. I mean, so to me, especially if you got Daniel Jones early, I would probably pair him with Hodgins out of those guys. But I mean, all of them are great values because you don't know. We don't know what's going to happen this year, and all of them showed some value, to Daniel Jones outside of Campbell. But it's something that we can definitely see more of because he already has that connection with them.
Yeah, 100%. So we're going to move on to tight end. This is the last position group for our late round flyer episode. And what we're going to do for tight end SC is we're each going to do two. Let's just group them together. I don't think we need to go on about our tight ends as much, just because I love tight ends. I always have, but they are devalued in fantasy leagues. So give me your two tight end late round flyers and a little bit about both of them.
First one, Logan Thomas, going at position 58 right now. I mean, this is a guy, we've seen him in the top 10. Now he's getting Benini, which is, former coach of Kelsey, just knows what to do. If he's healthy, he could be one of Sam Howell's trusted targets too, and definitely just someone that I think we've seen what he can do. And tight end, if you're not in the top 3, top 5, it's a rotating thing anyways. You're streaming your tight ends more than likely, and if Logan Thomas is healthy, he's definitely someone I want to stream because he has the upside to put in top 10 numbers, so you're 6 through 10. And also, I'm going to go into my second one, who also has that same upside, and that's Austin Hooper at ADP 50. I know they just got Michael Mayer, so I know that possibly will hurt. But if Michael Mayer is not catching on right away, guess what? Austin Hooper may be the guy. Jimmy Garoppolo loved his tight end, George Kittle. Austin Hooper is nowhere near George Kittle, but if he loves his tight ends like that, you might still see some consistency there. And again, this late, if you're getting a tight end this late, he's probably just a streaming option, not someone you're going to start on a weekly basis, but someone to go in there and be your bye-week filler just to get you 10, 12 points and be satisfied with that. So I love both those guys because I think they see some opportunity. Are they going to shine? No, not necessarily. But if you're not getting the top tight ends, then, I love taking these risks on these guys.
Yeah, and honestly, just I love the price on both those guys. I would not be surprised if you could throw a 4th-round pick at someone and get both of those guys. If they had both of them, I think you could plop them onto your roster. And I think people forget Logan Thomas when he's healthy is a pretty good player, right? He had that one top 10 season, right? That's not coming again, but it's just if that offense is even slightly better, he could see some success. And same thing with Hooper. People overemphasize how much work a rookie tight end can take. We think Michael Mayer is going to be good, but he may not immediately be good. And, they're going to need someone to throw the ball to there. So I think it's good.
We saw in Arizona last year with Zach Ertz and Trey McBride. It could be kind of a similar situation where it's we see Mayer, but we don't necessarily really see him because Austin Hooper's still in there. Mayer's really not catching it or something like that. He's really not picking it up quite yet. So they ease him in there, and that way Hooper gets in there. So, no, I agree.
100%. So for my two, I'm going to go with two guys. My first one, I'm going to go Mike Gesicki. I think what I like about Gesicki going up to the Patriots is just that at the moment, there is not a single offensive weapon outside of Ramondre Stevenson that I truthfully believe is more talented than Gesicki. So if he can find his role, he has a chance to be a really good target guy in that offense. Now, last year makes a lot of us doubt what Gesicki could be. His career was really hyping up, and then last year he just fell off an absolute plateau. When people thought McDaniel coming over from San Fran, he was going to blow up. And we thought he was going to have a big year, but he's a pass-catching tight end. He's not going to be doing a ton of blocking, and I just think in that offense, they have Juju, they have Gesicki. I mean, maybe Thornton takes a step ahead, but even then he's a deep threat.
Right.
And like that's it. They don't really got much else on that team outside of Stevenson.
Yeah.
So I just think tight end 24 for Gesicki, he's still young. I think he could turn it around. And for my second guy, this is one that I actually really do believe in it, and that's Jake Ferguson on Dallas. As soon as they let Dalton Schultz go, I think there was potential to hype up whoever the next guy in Dallas was, but people were really tentative to do so because we all assumed they were going to draft someone, and they did draft someone. It was a Shoemaker from Michigan, and I just don't know how much he worries me, if I'm being honest. I think he's a good blocker. I think he's a solid player. But I'll tell you this, when you watch Ferguson play, he just looks like Dalton Schultz, man. Like that's just what he looks like. And not that Dalton Schultz is the best guy in the world, but if he could just be 80% of Dalton Schultz, he's going to be a top 10 tight end. Right away. He's going to get 90 targets and 6 touchdowns. So I don't know. What do you think about those two guys?
I mean, I love Gesicki, and I feel the Patriots brought in Gesicki because what they wanted Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry to be, they're going to try to do that with Gesicki and Hunter Henry. They're just going to try to utilize these 2 tight ends, use Ramondre Stevenson backfield, and you may only see 1 wide receiver on the field. You may see 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, 1 wide receiver, and that might be Juju just to stretch the field. So I really do think they're bringing in Gesicki just so he can be the pass-catching tight end more so for the team, and I believe he's a little bit bigger than Hunter Henry. I could be wrong, but definitely someone where I feel you could see a top 15 season from him because he can get some targets from Mac Jones, and he might be that touchdown dependent one, but hey, he could easily put up 8-9 touchdowns this season, and that will scream so much for him in the value that you're getting him at. Ferguson, I love that pick actually, and I'm not a Dallas Cowboys truther at all. I'm from Houston, so Cowboys aren't in my realm, but I love the Ferguson pick because really where it's going, we're trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be Dalton Schultz this year for the Cowboys, right? So you have Henderson, Ferguson, and now Shoemaker. Take one of them, and if it's Ferguson, he already has some familiarity with the offense and how it runs, so he might get that first rep. And guess what? If he has a phenomenal game 1 as a starter, we're probably not going to see much of Shoemaker until Ferguson goes down or whatever may happen. He has a bad game, anything like that. So for me, on any of those Dallas Cowboys guys, I do want them if you're needing a tight end because I think one of them is going to be a great streaming option, and you want to make sure you have that one. So Ferguson at 35, people are going to be passing him because it's going to be like, okay, I don't want the tight end 35 right now, right? I'm going to just keep passing him. So you're getting him 18, 19 round, anything like that for a startup. Why not? Because there is some upside for him to be a healthy target to Dak, and he can, make some plays with it as well.
For sure. Well, thanks for joining me, SC. I had a lot of fun talking about some late round flyers today. Sure. You want to give us one last note, tell people where they can find you, and
Yeah, man. SC Romero with the Dynasty Pros. Do some shows with Sam. Have our Devi show every other Monday with our man JT and Tom. You can find me at the PPR show on Twitter. Follow me, and hopefully I get that Scott Fishbowl invite, and we can see some fun in there as well. But yeah, I mean, until next time, I'm here to answer any questions y'all may have.
Of course, man. I love having SC on. He knows. Here's what I'll say about all the Dynasty Pros guys, man. They always know the name of every single player anyone ever brings up. And that is a talent in itself because there are thousands of freaking players. So I appreciate it. And thank you guys for joining. If you want to check me out, check out Where's Waldorf here on Twitter. Hit me up with some questions. And thanks for joining.